Oh gosh, what a year it has been, Lauren. I gotta say,
Yeah.
now that we're going into the new year, and now that we're going into a country that's going to be different, I feel like this show is almost. I feel more of a duty to do this show now than I used to. The world has changed since I started
Yeah.
this show, even like because of the call that we just got right there. That wasn't a topic
Right.
of conversation 2 years ago. Like I said, we're talking about these kinds of things way more often in the mainstream consciousness. And I have been studying my butt off, trying to figure out why, trying to figure out what's going on. And I am just as lost as the other people looking into this and figuring out why is the country has changed. Obviously, I have ideas about the way we communicate and the way that information is disseminated on the internet, and how the publication of sources is now available to everybody, and not just certain gatekeepers like we had in the past. But yeah, I don't know how do you feel now going into 2021, like about all of this and what we're doing as activists, right?
Yeah, I think it's super important. And I agree with you that it's really scary. We've talked about several different conspiracy theories that
Mm-hmm.
are pretty rampant right now and have been for a while. I know we can't get into politics too much here, but even if you look
Yeah.
at what's going on politically for the last several years, that's kind of given more people a voice who may have some like more dangerous understandings of reality, or no understanding of reality at all, and then they're given more of a platform to speak on that and spread that message and make other people feel like it's okay. So yeah, it's really scary, and I'm hoping that at least in the States, with a change of administration and the vaccine and everything, I'm hoping that things will settle down a little bit. But I also think there's a lot of permanent damage that's been done this year, with the pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
with politics, you know, so many different things.
You want to know what's sad, Lauren? I'm not as
Yeah.
optimistic as you are. I there are more supporters of QAnon in the House of Representatives right now than there are African Americans. We've reached
That's
that
true,
point.
and that's terrifying.
Yeah, like this thing I've been ranting about and telling people like, oh, hey, we need to look at this. Now suddenly they're elected members of Congress. And
Yeah,
like I that's not going to go away. They are going to serve their terms, and even if they change their minds on things, the damage is done. People are freaking out. It's not the same country that we used to live in. It used to be that people that believed in the wild stuff were the people that we didn't interact with too often, and when they did, they were in specific confined circles that were a little more, located away from the mainstream. Like you knew if you were looking at something that wasn't true because it came from a very specific source like InfoWars or something like that. But now with Facebook and Twitter and our
yeah,
feeds getting mingled with everything else, you have to be
right.
on your guard 100% of the time. 100% of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's no clear answer. Everyone's like, "Oh, just blame Mark Zuckerberg
Yeah.
because Facebook got bigger than he could handle, and how can he possibly take all the misinformation off the internet?" And he's afraid of being accused of having, people having their free speech violated and all this. But I don't think it's that simple to just change how things are on social media. In fact, I don't really think it's possible to
Mm.
curb that in the way that it needs to be curbed. So yeah, I don't really have a black and white answer, but I think one really important thing that we can do, at least as individuals and with our own channels, is continue to have compassion and empathy for people, because I think people are a lot less willing to listen and have their minds changed and shed some of those more harmful beliefs and conspiracy theories if they feel like they're being attacked and they
Yeah.
feel defensive all the time. I love to watch a good debate. I find it entertaining. I like to watch Matt and others on the Atheist Experience get pissed off at people. Like, it's entertaining.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
all of us, it is. And there's genuine reason to be angry at people with some of those mindsets. But I really think, like I said, we have to have more patience and compassion and a willingness to listen to each other, or we're not going to make any progress.
I agree. I agree. And I wonder though, do you like those who the ones that we want to convince of the truth the most, I wonder if their compassion is shrinking for the rest of us, you know, the ones who hold the values that we hold. And I think that's kind of happening too, because I think like the distrust that people have of sort of mainstream institutions of informations, not just news. It's the CDC, the presidency. I mean, everything, right? Like everything has been rotted in some way or another. Like that's affecting our relationships with talking to people as well. And just that distrust, because suddenly, Lauren, you and we're a part of the establishment now. Like we might be the bad guys. The only time I've ever seen somebody call me a shill was when I was trying to debunk flat earth stuff. But I imagine people will talk about it more. I mean, like that's just it's gonna get, I feel like it's gonna get more black and white. I don't know. It just seems to be that's the trend. But
yeah, I mean, you could very well be right. That's the trend doesn't seem to be diminishing in any sense of the word. But I think like at the very least, we can do all that we can, like I said, as individual activists and listen and ask questions. But you're totally right that we can have compassion for days and listen for days. But a lot of folks who are so deeply entrenched in some really toxic mindsets are not going to listen to us, even if we're listening to them. And they're just going to try to find things that comfort them and like reinforce their own harmful beliefs. So you're right. It could very well just get louder and louder and harder to communicate with people. I just am kind of the mindset, like, I don't want to add fuel to the fire, unless I feel like being sassy on my channel. But you know, in a one-on-one conversation, I like Magna Bosco's approach the best, you know, asking lots of questions. And I think that's the best way to potentially get people to change their minds. But
I do
unfortunately, a lot of people don't.
I do too, and I don't always practice it either. I get you know, frustrated just like anybody else. I'd like to think I'm more patient than the average person, but like I don't know. Like it comes to a point sometimes, you know. It gets frustrating, especially when it feels like we're on the losing side of things overall. That's what it's felt like for a little while now for me. But you're right. We can't give up hope, because you know what? Like you and I were part of the other side, quote unquote, just a few years ago, and we changed our minds. And I don't think I'm particularly smarter than the average person. I really don't. And I don't know how you feel about yourself, but like I do think that regular normal people can think through this and can get through this, but they do need the help. And it's not just going to be from like, you know, stuff that they see on Twitter. Sometimes it's probably going to have to come from conversations like the ones that we're trying to have every day. I think that one-on-one conversation is the most effective thing we can have.
Absolutely.